Well, that was unfortunate. The Minnesota Wild losing in a shootout to the Buffalo Sabres. Where do we go from here? How do we fix what led to one of the Wild's most disappointing losses of the season? We look at that plus more today on Locked on Wild.
You're Locked on Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to today's episode of Locked on Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen every day. And just as a reminder, Locked on Wild is free and available wherever you listen to podcasts. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. The holidays are right around the corner, and finding the perfect gift is tricky. Omaha Steaks makes it easy to send friends and family an unforgettable gift, guaranteed to be loved. Go to omahasteaks.com and enter NHL into the search bar to order the perfect gift package. On today's episode of Locked on Wild, we look at what led to the Wild's 3-2 shootout loss to the Buffalo Sabres in tonight's game. We'll look at some of the things that need to be cleaned up ahead of Saturday's matchup against the Florida Panthers as well. My name is Seth Topal, host of Locked on Wild, veteran Minnesota sports content producer with over a decade's worth of experience covering all Minnesota sports teams, and now happy to be covering the Minnesota Wild, and happy to welcome you into a Friday edition of the show. Feeling pretty much back to normal, although maybe not sounding like it, but oh boy, that was not a fun game against the Buffalo Sabres. The Wild lose 3-2 in a shootout to the Sabres. They do salvage a point out of the game, which I guess is the I guess that's the bright spot from tonight's game. And so, some interesting things to point out from this game before we kind of unpack it and try to move on and figure out how the team goes from here. The first time in Dean Evason's coaching tenure, 97 games, the first time that the Wild have lost 3 in a row. So we've got that going for us. Obviously, as we'll talk about going through the rest of the show, the Wilds, one of the things that they do well is bounce back, and they will bounce back from this. It's just unfortunate given the events earlier in the week that the Wilds didn't look like a team that had. So there were two ways to look at this. The Wilds could either have come out and looked like a team that was rested or looked like a team that hadn't played since Sunday. And unfortunately, we got the team that looked like they hadn't played since Sunday due to Tuesday night's postponement. The Sabres, to their credit, came out swinging as bad teams do. They came out swinging and really played with that nothing to lose mentality. And rightfully so. They're a team at the bottom of the standings, have won, I think, 2 out of their last 14 games, some coming into this game against the Wild. So obviously they were playing for pride at this point, and pride won out. Although, to be fair, in a stat in the broadcast mentioned that the Sabres had not allowed more than 2 goals in their last handful of games, and they dictated the tempo. They got the Wild to the penalty box, and it really looked. I'll go back to those two sides of the coin. When you have games that are postponed and you have a long layoff, you're either going to come out and you're going to look like a team that is rested and ready to go, or you're going to look like a team that is rusty and hasn't played in a while. And tonight, the Wild looked rusty. So there were a lot of different elements that kind of compounded into this loss. Cam Talbot was definitely not one of them. Played great, faced way more pressure than I think he should have had to. in this game tonight, and ultimately gives up the one shootout goal. But at the end of the day, some of the big things to circle to in this game is the Wild had a 4-minute penalty early on in the game in which they were not able to score. And so this power play, despite kind of getting back on track with a power play goal in their last 5 games, heading into this one tonight, they go 0 for 2, and the Wild have, again, courtesy of the broadcast, the 32nd ranked power play at home in the NHL, which is, it's not great. I mean, this team plays so well in even strength that it almost seems as though opponents, that's basically the strategy to beat the Wild, is to get them into power play situations because they can't seem to score. And so I tend to think, and I don't really have anything as of right now. We will dive deeper into this going forward. Eye test is that the power play, again, is just getting way too selective. They are moving the puck, I think, to an overabundance, which is leading to a lot less shots. And when the Wild do shoot on the power play, it's usually after 4 or 5 passes to where the shot itself is forced or is rushed because you're looking up the clock and it's like, oh crap, we don't have a lot of time left on this power play, so we got to get a shot off, and so it's forced, it's hurried, and it leads to a pretty easy clear for the opponent. It also, I know, something that has led to struggles for this team previously is the high danger types of shots, and the Wild are not taking them on the power play. And so coming into this matchup against the Sabres, power play goals in 5 straight games. So yes, it looked as though the power play was back on track, but this team has also missed some huge opportunities over the last week. They had the 5-on-3 against Vegas, in which they were not able to score. Numerous power play opportunities in that game against the Kings, the Golden Knights, and now a couple opportunities in this one tonight. And, I talked about it in teasing the matchup for this game, that this is one that the Wild should be able to win on just talent alone. Well, we saw what happens when you kind of get away from that, or you allow a team to hang around too much, is that then some of those teams that feel like they have to overcome odds every single night, they end up using that as kind of a chip on their shoulder. And the longer you allow those teams to hang around, the more opportunities there are for bad things to happen. So the season isn't over. The sky is not falling. But at the same time, this is a frustrating loss because it feels like a game that the Wild definitely could have had going into Saturday's matchup against the Panthers. So, yeah, this is, I would like to just flush this game. And so we are going to look at some things going forward for how the Wild move forward from this game. But all in all, just a disappointing loss, to say the least, for the Minnesota Wild. So we'll leave it at that. And we will take a look now at some of the areas that the Wild can try to get back on track and try to avoid making it 4 games lost in a row. That is coming up here on Locked On Wild. The holidays are right around the corner, and finding that perfect gift is tricky. Omaha Steaks makes it easy to send friends and family an unforgettable gift, guaranteed to be loved. Head to omahasteaks.com and enter NHL into the search bar to order the perfect gift package. For $99.99, you'll get 24 entrees like the world-famous bacon-wrapped filet mignons, chicken breasts, sides, desserts, and so much more. When you use the code NHL, you'll get an additional 8 Omaha Steaks burgers free with your order. We've all heard the reports about shortages and shipping delays, so don't delay. Order the perfect gift package today at omahasteaks.com and you'll get 8 free burgers when entering the code NHL. Achieve gifting greatness with Omaha Steaks. Incredible flavor, incredible value, and 100% 100% guaranteed. OmahaSteaks.com, keyword NHL. The holiday season is here, and if you're looking for some stocking stuffers, look no further than Built Bar. Built Bar has so much holiday goodness, is rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, and high in protein as well. So you get the best of both worlds, both delicious and healthy. There are so many flavors to choose from as well. You could go raspberry or mint brownie, cherry or double chocolate, cookies and cream, or peanut butter brownie. Built Bar gives you that extra fuel you need to bust down those mall doors and battle all the holiday shoppers. Or if you're just standing in endless shopping lines, Built Bar can give you that extra something you need to keep going. So throw it in your jacket or purse. You never know when you're going to need a Built Bar. Head to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off of your order. Again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Continuing today's episode of Locked on Wild, and again, thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen every day. Just as a reminder, Locked on Wild is free and available wherever you listen to podcasts. Recapping the Wild's 3-2 shootout loss to the Buffalo Sabres, and now looking ahead at some of the ways that the Wild can try to flip the page and move on from this game. I think one of the things, and I'll give credit to Ray on Twitter for pointing this out, and I saw it mentioned as well in a couple of other spots, that the Wild's got to they got to do something with that third line. That Fiala, Gaudreau, and Rask combo was not great, and so I think it's time to get Rem Pitlick back in the lineup, whether it be at the expense of Gaudreau or Rask. Probably Rask. That would be that'd be the way that I would go with it. So that obviously is one easy point to try to pin and replace from this game. Now, some of the other numbers looking at this, that line of Fiala and Gaudreau and Rask. I mean, Victor Rask is playing. He played 11 minutes in the game against Buffalo. Fiala played 16. Gaudreau played 13. So that line, I don't know. I mean, that entire line, really the only person, in fact, the only person that took shots on that line was Fiala. So I think it's time to make some changes there, shuffle that line around a bit. That's why when we looked at Claude Giroux as a potential trade target, it was for that specific line to try to do something to jolt Fiala and the rest of that group. The rest of the lines, I think, have played fine. I mean, I don't think they were necessarily the issues as to why this team lost tonight. But that third line's they got to do something to try to kind of jazz that up a little bit, because as of now, it's just teams are keying in on Fiala, and that's really the only thing that you have to worry about beating you when that third line comes into the game. So get Rask off there, get Gaudreau off there for a game, get Pitlick back in, and just try to get that line going a little bit moving forward. We do have breaking news as we were recording from Dane Mizutani. Jared Spurgeon re-aggravated his lower body injury and will not play on Saturday, according to Coach Dean Evison. It's not good. So that's also not great coming out of this game. And Spurgeon did headed into the locker room and did not return. So obviously he's going to be out for a bit. So that means Jordy Ben is going to have to step up to fill that spot. And it's crazy that the Wild went on this winning streak in which they won 8 in a row without Jared Spurgeon before. Then Jonas Brodin gets hurt, and the Wild lose 2 in a row. So I have no idea what to make of that. I think it's just an oddity at this point. I don't think it's anything in particular to read into, because they're both very good players. But the Wild will likely be without the services of Jared Spurgeon for at least a while. So Jordy Ben back in. He was fine in filling in for Spurgeon before, and so he will have to do it again here for the foreseeable future. The other thing that needs to be fixed is the power play. I mean, and you can talk at the surface about some of the stuff that has been issues with this team in the past, just being too selective and passing the puck a little too much. And it's amazing how that kind of stuff just um, seems to rear its ugly head once again. And um, to quote the great Wayne Gretzky, being quoted by Michael Scott in The Office, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And if you have a power play in which you don't shoot, or you can't get shots off, you're not going to score. So my personal preference is more shots on net over the course of a power play. Um, I'm obviously not anti-passing. So, yeah, you can work the puck around the zone a little bit to try to get better shots, but I'm always going to err on the side of trying to get the puck on the net in order to cash in on extra opportunities. Or at that point, you may as well just hold the puck on your own end for the 2 minutes and just kind of give your guys a breather if you're not going to shoot. So try to get some more pucks on net. Quantity of shots is a good thing. And yes, I know if you have a shot that hits the goaltender and bounces off and is picked up by the other team, they're going to clear. And so it's going to take you, 15, 20 seconds to get back into the zone. What difference is that than having control of the zone the entire time, but spending 10, 15 seconds passing the puck around the perimeter without shooting? It ends up being exactly the same thing. So more shots on net, a tweak to the third line, and beyond that, I mean, the fact that the goaltending has flipped, and yes, the game against the Golden Knights was not great, but beyond that, the goaltending has been kind of the thing that's been steering the ship here over the last 7 or 8 games, as opposed to the offense. So that's good to see. But it'd be nice to get a little bit of a balance, as to where we're not seeing like all offense, no goaltending, and then no offense, all goaltending. Like, get a little bit of a happy medium. That's all I ask. But I don't know. At the end of the day, it's just still a good team. This is still a team that deserves to be where they're at in the standings. They still have a ton of quality wins against other teams in the NHL. So it's not like they're just beating up on bad teams as they did last year. It's just it's an unfortunate speed bump in the road that they hit at this point in the season. So just gotta get up off the map and go give the Florida Panthers everything that they can handle coming into Saturday's matchup. We'll talk about the Panthers coming to town a little bit when we come back here on Locked on Wild. BetOnline.ag has you covered all season long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as the NFL continues its march to the playoffs. BetOnline.ag remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. So head over to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive that welcome bonus. They offer everything from college basketball, the NBA, the NFL, college football, the NHL, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino games. So don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline.ag is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. Florida Panthers coming into this matchup against the Minnesota Wild, and they are just 1-3 in their last 4 games. Panthers with a lot of COVID issues that they are dealing with. They also just put Alexander Barkov back on the IR. So it's going to be a shorthanded Panthers team coming into the XL Energy Center. But we can't take that for granted because of the fact that the Wild just dropped one to the Buffalo Sabres at home. So you can't just assume that, oh, it's home ice, so we'll be able to defend it and beat the team coming in no matter what, because we just saw the exact opposite of that here last night. But we go back to the matchup before against the Panthers. The Wild losing that one close, despite a furious comeback, and the Wild talking about in reacting to that game, talking about just the speed at which the Panthers play. And the fact that it was an adjustment for the Wild. They didn't necessarily expect that from the Panthers. And so it's one of those like, okay, we saw them once. Now we know what we're getting into. And so we just have to be ready for that coming up this next time. So I'm expecting what should be a great game between these two teams, even with the fact that the Panthers are going to be shorthanded coming into Saturday's game. For the Wilds, just looking at some of the things that have hurt them over the past handful of games is, as we talked about early in the season, too many minutes in the penalty box. So if the Wild if they get back to playing smart and limiting the opportunities for the opposing team, and I know this is all cliche, but just go back and take a look at it. I mean, the Wilds, when they have not had to defend so many penalties in games, have been very good. And if they can coax a penalty or two here and there from the opponent, that's great. But the Wild strength all season has been beating teams 5-on-5. And so if we can eliminate penalties on both ends, eliminate the need for the penalty kill, eliminate the need for the power play, just beat them 5-on-5. And the Wilds can do that, and they can hang with anybody in that situation. I would suspect that it will be Cam Talbot again in net. Cam was great against the Sabres, with the exception of the one shootout goal. But at the same time, how often do you see shootouts end 1-0 with your team on home ice not able to get a single shootout goal? I feel like the odds of giving up one goal and losing are pretty low. I mean, I'm sure there have been instances of it happening, but I don't feel like Talbot giving up the one goal in the shootout was the reason that the Wild lost. If anything, I'd flip it and say the fact that we didn't score any is a bigger reason why than just giving up one. So Talbot was good. I would expect that he will get the start against the Panthers to try to keep things rolling and going up against a really good team. It just makes sense at home to go that route. But if the Wild can keep this 5-on-5, if they can get some better production, we've seen the top two lines now start to really take over the last probably 2 weeks. Kaprizov and his line, and Greenway, Foligno, Eriksson Ek. We've seen that top six really step up and take charge. Whereas the early part of the season, it was the bottom six that was helping the Wild win some games. The Wild could really use a nice dose of the fourth line again against the Panthers to win this game. That has been one of the things that's really set the Wild apart from their opponents, is that they have that depth and they've got those four lines that can beat you on any given night. So if they can get some good production from that fourth line, if they can get production from that third line with Rem Pitlick back, bonus. Awesome. Love that. But if they can get some good production from that fourth line and get what we've seen over the last week or two from Kaprizov, Zuccarello, and Hartman, and then the Greenway, Foligno, Eriksson Ek lines, if you can get that, you're going to beat the Panthers on Saturday. So the Wild have a great opportunity to bounce back and to continue what has been a good start to the season for them. Yes, they're in a scuffle right now, but no reason they can't break that on Saturday and get us all back to where we want to be with this team, which is looking ahead to some bigger and better things. So hopefully things will go better on Saturday. We will have reaction to that for you, of course, with Monday's episode of Locked On Wild. We'll recap the entire weekend, NHL top to bottom, with Alex Micheletti on our Monday edition of the show. So make sure to look forward to that. And that will wrap up today's episode of Locked On Wild. Now that your first listen of the day is done, make sure that you head over to Locked On Bets for your second listen, your daily one-stop shop for all of your gambling needs. Locked On Bets is hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. Locked On Bets is free and available on all podcast platforms. Just like Locked On Wild, we are available everywhere you listen to podcasts, so make sure to check out the show and all of our social media platforms as well. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We keep you as up to date as possible on Minnesota Wild hockey as we possibly can. If a puck drops in the state of hockey, Locked On Wild has you covered with new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.